This is the multi-voice text-to-speech podfic reading of Please Mind the Gap by Aquamyosotis, composed by Burning Aurora, Kaliana, and Flowerhawk. Remus already knew the hot chocolate was a bad idea. He had known it when the elderly lady behind the cafe counter had spotted Teddy looking up at her with wide, hopeful eyes, and she'd asked him directly,
"Would you like cream and marshmallows, dear?"
Teddy had given her his best smile, missing front tooth for maximum cuteness factor, and then turned to look at Remus offering a lispy,
"Can I, Daddy, please?"
"The little shit." The lady had practically cooed at him.
"What a lovely young lad, and he's the spit of you."
He couldn't exactly say no then, heard himself say,
"Yes, all right, but be careful,"
which everyone knows is the parent equivalent of signing a waiver, and paid the extortionate extra £2 to have a squirt of cream and a handful of mini marshmallows added to the cup. And now here he was, one hand covered in scalding, sticky liquid, and a distraught 5-year-old sobbing at thigh level.
"Teddy,
Remus said, trying his best not to raise his voice.
what did I say?
"It's hot."
Teddy wailed.
I told you that."
Remus put the now half-empty cup. He'd done a good job of snatching it out of thin air as it fell, down at the foot of the bench.
"Here, let me see."
Teddy puffed out his lower lip, chocolate still dribbling down his chin and staining his pale blue jacket. Remus gave the lip a cursory glance, more to mollify than anything else. He'd been here before, and slid his rucksack off his shoulder, unzipping the front compartment to retrieve the wet wipes.
"It looks okay, Teds?
He soothed. Teddy was still hiccuping miserably as Remus wiped him down.
Do you want another try?"
Teddy just shook his head. Remus sighed and started his own cleanup. His hand was throbbing a bit. He closed his eyes for half a second, because by God did he love this child with an intensity that quite often made his chest ache. But there really were times when the universe seemed determined to test that love in very specific ways. At least he'd picked off the marshmallow and licked off the cream. And at least the station wasn't that busy. They were sitting on a bench a safe distance back from the platform edge. Remus's foot angled unconsciously towards Teddy. The winter light filtering through the murky glass roof was flat and gray, and the air smelled faintly metallic. Overhead, an announcement crackled into life.
"The next train to arrive at Platform 2 will be the..."
Remus didn't bother to listen. He could barely make it out anyway.
"How long now?"
Remus looked down to find Teddy leaning forward slightly, peering down the platform. He checked the departure board.
13 minutes.
Ugh,
Teddy threw himself back against the bench.
that's ages.
No, it's not.
Remus told him and reached down to pick up the hot chocolate. He took a sip. It was lukewarm.
Have some more.
He offered the cup to Teddy.
It's cooled down.
Teddy took the cup and immediately took a large, wobbly sip.
Still hot.
He let his mouthful dribble out of his mouth and back into the cup.
Teddy,
Remus snatched the cup back.
don't be disgusting.
You said it wasn't hot, but it was hot.
Teddy told him.
It's not hot.
Remus said again, completely pointlessly.
Can I finish it then?
Teddy nodded, and Remus drained the cup, leaning over Teddy to throw it into the bin, pleased to be rid of the bloody thing. He flexed his fingers, wincing slightly, and examined his hand, which was a little pink still, but didn't merit further fuss.
Does it hurt?
Oh no, it's fine.
Remus said honestly.
Just a bit warm.
Teddy peered at his hand, unconvinced.
I didn't mean to.
I know.
I said I was sorry.
A lie. Teddy was clearly considering the injustice of his feelings. Remus bit back a smile.
It's fine, Teds, but you didn't say sorry.
I did.
His voice crumpled, and he leaned sideways until his head came to rest on Remus's arm. A deliberate gesture, heavy with the need for reassurance. Remus shifted instinctively to make room, wrapping his arm around Teddy's back and holding him close.
You're not in trouble.
Remus told him, kissing the top of his head.
Accidents happen, but you didn't say sorry.
I'm sorry.
The words were muffled into the sleeve of Remus's coat.
That's okay.
He propped Teddy back up again, taking his hand instead, and gave it a squeeze. That earned him a small smile, and soon enough, Teddy was back to himself.
What do spiders do?
He asked with zero provocation at all. Remus didn't miss a beat.
Play tennis.
He answered.
They use hollyberries as the ball.
Teddy grinned.
And if they don't have their racket and they can't play tennis, do they eat the berries, or can they not eat the berries? Because they're poison.
I don't know.
Remus pondered a moment.
I think they can eat the berries.
Because the spiders are poison too.
Poisonous.
Remus corrected him.
Yes, I think so. I think it would cancel it out.
Why don't spiders wear clothes?
Because there are no shops for them to buy them in.
Do you not like the big spiders, and you only like the really tiny ones?
I'm not really bothered by any sort of spiders. Just maybe not a tarantula.
What does it feel like on your arm?
A tarantula? I don't know, probably like a tickly feeling.
Remus reached over and tickled his way up Teddy's arm, making him shriek with laughter.
Like that.
Teddy carried on giggling.
When do...
He stopped talking as another overhead announcement started, far louder this time.
The train now arriving at platform 9 is the 13:25 Southwest Trains service to London Waterloo, calling at Clapham Junction and London Waterloo. Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
That's us.
Remus told him, and he stood, hoisting the rucksack back onto his shoulder. Teddy hopped up beside him, reaching automatically for Remus's hand. They moved closer to the edge of the platform, stopping at a sensible distance, close enough that Teddy could see the train approaching, far enough that Remus knew he would be able to stomp down those intrusive thoughts which would inevitably be making an appearance. The train pulled in with a familiar screech of brakes and a rush of displaced air that whipped Teddy's scarf up around his chin. Teddy laughed, trying to stick his hands over his ears as the doors slid open. People began to spill out whilst others surged forwards. Remus waited patiently, happy for them to be the last ones on.
All right.
He said, as the lady in front of them disappeared inside. He adjusted his rucksack and positioned Teddy in front of him, a steadying hand on his shoulder.
Up you go.
Teddy took one step up into the train and then stopped.
I can see the tracks.
He let his other foot dangle in the gap between the train and the platform, delighted with life.
I'm sure you can.
Remus said, hurriedly lifting him up instead and plonking him down inside the train, following behind.
But you don't want to lose a shoe.
What happens if your shoe falls off?
I think you just have to carry on with your day with only one shoe.
Remus guided them towards a pair of seats near the door, ushering Teddy in by the window and stowing the rucksack overhead, giving it a firm shove to make sure it was secure. He stepped back out into the aisle, rolling his shoulders a little, and then slipped in opposite Teddy. The train hummed beneath him, a low, familiar vibration that he could feel up his spine. He shrugged out of his coat and draped it over his lap, folding the sleeves in on themselves, and then reached over to unzip Teddy.
Don't kick the seat.
He murmured.
I'm not...
Teddy said immediately, even as his heel nudged the plastic edge of the trim experimentally.
No, but you're thinking about it.
Teddy just gave him a toothy smile and let his foot fall towards the floor, not quite reaching. He twisted instead to look out the window, trying to peer down to look at the tracks, and Remus settled back in his seat, watching the platform through the still open doors. He liked to watch the platform until the very last second, an old habit from his childhood, waving goodbye to his grandmother after long summers in the Scottish Highlands. He had just opened his mouth to ask Teddy if he could see anything interesting when something shifted. It wasn't anything obvious at first. There was no noise or sensation, just a subtle tightening in the air. Remus paused, and then he saw it, a ripple of movement at the top of the stairs leading down the platform that was just in Remus's eyeline. He instinctively leant forward. Something was happening, and then Remus saw the pram. It appeared first, angled awkwardly at the threshold of the stairs, its front wheels lifted off the steps as it bumped down the first few before the back wheels caught briefly on the edge and the whole thing tipped dangerously. Remus heard someone swear loudly and then a body emerged. A man wearing a charcoal gray overcoat, dark hair falling into his eyes and a scarf hanging loose and perilously close to getting caught in the wheels of the pushchair. Then there was a wail, and Remus felt the sound in his chest before he processed it properly, a sharp, instinctive jolt of recognition. Oh no, there was a baby crying in the pram, and Remus had been there, and it wasn't fun. His hand tightened on the seat frame without him quite realizing he'd moved. He'd already stood up, weight rocking onto the balls of his feet, attention narrowing with the kind of focus that only ever came from years of practice. Late, struggling, pushchair hot, overwhelmed baby crying. Oh, for Christ's sake. He glanced down at Teddy, who was still in his seat, breathing onto the filthy window and drawing patterns into the condensation.
Stay there.
Remus said.
Do not move. Okay, I'll be right back.
Teddy nodded,
Okay.
and then promptly stood up as Remus turned his back and stepped back down onto the platform, just as the man paused, 3/4 of the way down the steps, clearly breathless, his eyes wild as he looked despairingly at the train. Remus rushed forward, taking the steps 3 at a time.
Here.
He bent down and grabbed the front of the pram frame and steadied it.
I've got it.
The man, who was bloody gorgeous, Remus realized, looked up, startled, and then visibly sagged with relief.
Thank you.
He said earnestly, and together they maneuvered the pushchair down the rest of the stairs.
I'm so sorry, I thought I had more time and…
It's fine.
Remus said, as the warning chime of train doors closing imminently began its insistent beeping. A sudden spike of awareness hit him hard. Teddy,
Come on.
he shouted, sprinting back towards the train and jamming himself in the way of the doors to stop them from closing. The man tore after him, and as Remus looked over behind him, he realized a horrible twist of panic that Teddy was no longer sat where he left him.
Teddy.
He looked back out onto the platform, but he couldn't see anything, and Remus's vision was just about going blurry when a very familiar, very matter-of-fact voice sounded from right next to him.
There is no space for that pram.
Oh, thank God.
Remus said, feeling hot all over, and bodily moved Teddy back further into the train, still jamming himself in between the doors.
Teddy, go and sit down.
The baby is crying.
Teddy.
Fuck,
The man with the pram was peering past Remus.
there's no room.
What?
Remus whirled around and understood what Teddy had been talking about. Several large suitcases stood in the way of the entrance and rest of the train carriage.
Oh, you're going to have to fold it.
Okay, yeah.
The man seemed even more flustered and started fumbling with the cover of the bassinet. He looked up at Remus with wide gray eyes.
Can you lift him out?
Remus nodded without thinking. He bent forward rather precariously and started unbuckling the straps, years of muscle memory guiding his hands.
If you want.
He scooped the baby up against his chest, a warm, tiny bundle in a blue knit hat that opened his mouth and wailed.
Hush, hush, hush.
Remus tried to soothe, jiggling from side to side as he watched the man collapse the pram with little success. Down the platform somewhere, a whistle blew.
Why is it crying?
Teddy was still there, looking up at Remus and the baby with interest.
Is it hungry?
Teddy, go and sit down.
Is he okay?
The man was looking anxiously at the screaming baby, a changing bag looped around his neck, a rucksack in one hand, and still trying to get the handle of the pram to lay flat with the other.
Oh my God, come on.
I am quite hungry. Daddy, I know you're going to say no, but…
The beeping sounded again, and another blow of the whistle. Somewhere along the platform, someone was shouting.
Come on.
The man sounded totally and utterly desperate.
Swap.
Remus all but yelled, jumping down back onto the platform, grabbing the man's rucksack and unlooping the changing bag from around his neck and chucking them on the floor. He thrust the baby over.
Get on, get on.
Yes, thank you.
The man leapt on, baby clutched tight against his chest.
I'm so sorry.
The pushchair's handle finally folded with a recalcitrant snap, and Remus looked up triumphant for only a moment. The doors were sliding shut.
No.
Remus cried, and for some reason the only thing he could think to do in that split second was take off his shoe and throw it through the increasingly smaller gap as the doors closed entirely, leaving his right foot shoeless, a bright blue sock adorned with fluffy Highland cows revealed for all and sundry. Then the train lurched.
No.
Remus shouted again, smashing his finger onto the door button and over, but it was no use. The train began to move. Remus's heart was pounding. He moved with the train, walking at first and then breaking into a jog. Inside the carriage, the man stood frozen, baby in his arms, eyes wide with dawning panic. Beside him stood Teddy, his hands pressed against the glass.
Daddy,
Remus could hardly keep up now.
Teddy,
He called.
stay with this man.
Daddy,
Remus took one last look at the man as his heart nearly gave out from the effort of running.
Get off it, Clapham.
He bellowed and the man nodded.
Okay.
Remus saw him mouth, and then the train was outrunning him, and all Remus could do was stop and stare, torn between horror and hysterical laughter. Sirius Black had made a series of questionable decisions in his 32 years of life, but he was reasonably certain that allowing the train doors to close on a poor man that was only trying to help and in the process separating him from his young child ranked somewhere near the top. And just to make it all complete, Harry was still crying. Not crying, screaming, which meant that of course people were looking, and that meant,
I want Daddy.
oh God, he was going to be arrested.
Hey,
Sirius crouched down to the boy's eye level.
it's okay, mate. It's okay. Everyone's okay.
Harry screamed louder, and Sirius desperately tried to bounce him in his arms, despite the train's lurching and his uneven footing. The boy's face crumpled further.
I want Daddy.
He said again, voice wobbling dangerously, although this time much quieter. Sirius's heart almost broke for the lad. He could only be 5 or 6, blonde hair and brown eyes. He looked just like his dad, Sirius realized.
Oh.
He said helplessly.
Yeah, mate. Me too.
The look on the child's face told him that this had not been a helpful thing to say. Sirius swallowed and tried again.
Hey,
He said more gently, pitching his voice low in what he hoped was a soothing manner.
your dad's not gone. He's just
He gestured vaguely towards the doors where suburban London was flying past.
not here anymore.
Again, a terrible thing to say.
I mean,
Sirius rushed on as the boy opened his mouth, no doubt to let out another wail of despair.
not here at the moment, but he will be here very soon.
The blonde head shook violently.
The door is shut.
Yes,
Sirius agreed.
they are. But when we stop, they'll open again.
And Daddy will be there.
Yes, maybe. Actually, no.
Sirius had to admit.
Probably not straight away. Sorry, mate.
This earned him another loud sob, and Harry decided it was time to let out a fresh, ear-splitting howl. People were definitely watching now. Sirius could feel it. A few curious glances, a couple of sympathetic looks, the subtle judging strangers did as they decided whether you were a competent parent having a bad moment or a strange man on the brink of a meltdown on a public train. Probably the latter, he mused. He got himself upright and shifted Harry higher on his shoulder, rocking him.
Okay, Haz. It's okay. Shh.
He looked out the doors again, the train rattling beneath his feet. This was fine. He could definitely fix this. They'd be at Clapham Junction any minute, and he just had to get off and keep this random child alive until the bloke turned up. Easy.
Fucking hell.
Sirius muttered under his breath, starting to spiral. What if the man never turned up? What happened if they got to Clapham and nothing? Would he have to take the boy home with him? Was the child his now? Is that how things like this worked? He could barely cope with one, let alone two. Sirius glanced around, suddenly acutely aware what the three of them must look like. One wild-haired man, clearly out of his depth and sweating, holding a screaming baby while a 5 or 6-year-old cried beside him. No visible pram, no changing bag, no other adult claiming responsibility. Oh God, he could already see the headlines with horrifying clarity. Local man detained after train incident.
I was just trying to save a child.
He claims. And as if said child could see inside his brain, Sirius felt a slight tug on his coat, and a small voice asked,
Are you taking me?
Sirius's heart lurched.
Ha.
He laughed entirely too loudly.
No, of course not. I just need to, hold on to you for a bit.
You are not allowed to take people if they're not yours.
That's true.
Sirius said at once.
Sorry, bad phrasing.
He scrubbed his hand through his hair.
Your dad needs me to keep you until we can meet him at the next station, which we will be at very soon.
Daddy'll be there.
The boy asked again. Sirius opened his mouth and then closed it again, because he didn't actually want to give an answer that might not be true. At the end of the day, he knew nothing about this man beyond the fact that he'd got off the train to help Sirius and had unbuckled Harry and held him in his arms without a second thought, which said something, probably something good.
He'll be there.
Sirius said finally, because he realized that's what he needed to say to keep the peace.
If someone had Harry on a train,
He cut himself off, throat tightening unexpectedly.
I'd come running.
The boy considered this, rubbing at his eyes with the heels of his hands.
Daddy runs a lot. He's really fast.
There you go.
Are you my babysitter?
Sirius startled. For a boy who less than 2 minutes ago seemed beyond distraught, he seemed to have got over it rather quickly.
God, no.
But babysitters come when daddies go out. and grannies are at yoga.
Um,
Daddy used to go to yoga with Granny, but then there was this man, and he was called Gideon, and he had another friend, and that friend used to be Daddy's friend, but now none of them are friends. But Granny still goes because she says it's funny to watch them.
oh, right.
Sirius said, not understanding a bloody word. He looked out the window. Still no sight of the station. This was clearly the slowest train in the world. Harry grizzled in his arms.
Okay.
Sirius said, laughing weakly despite himself.
I hear you. We won't be long, has he?
Is he angry?
The boy was watching them with curious eyes.
No.
Sirius said immediately.
I think he's just hungry and fed up.
A solemn nod.
Babies cry a lot.
They do.
Sirius agreed.
It's their main skill, really.
What's your name?
Sirius dropped into a crouch again, bracing himself against the wall, and the boy edged closer until he was sitting beside Sirius. Sirius rested his free hand lightly on his back, in what he hoped was a comforting gesture.
Sirius.
He said. The boy's head lifted.
Like the dog star.
Sirius blinked.
Yes.
He said, surprised.
Like the dog star.
I know all about the stars because my daddy is an astrophysicist. He likes the stars.
Wow.
Sirius said, feeling something peculiarly warm settle in his chest.
That's really cool.
There was a pause.
What's your name?
Sirius asked gently.
Teddy Remus Lyle Lupin.
Sirius was slightly taken aback.
Well,
He said,
that is a great name.
Can I have a snack from the bag?
Sirius wasn't sure he had any snacks suitable for a 5-year-old in his bag. He was pretty sure giving him a cigarette would be frowned upon.
I'm afraid I don't have anything, bud.
No, my bag.
Teddy pointed back into the train carriage.
I can't reach.
Sirius followed his finger and spotted a bag in the overhead storage.
Oh, is that yours?
Teddy nodded.
There's crisps in it.
I don't see why not.
Sirius decided and stood up to retrieve the bag, grabbing it down and stepping back next to Teddy, as finally an announcement buzzed through the speakers. Sirius caught the words "next station will be," and he felt his entire body loosen with relief as he felt something hit his knee. Teddy had leaned sideways, resting his head on Sirius's knee. Sirius stroked the top of his head.
Nearly there, Teddy.
Sirius fished out a packet of crisps and handed them down.
Just a couple of minutes and we'll see about finding your dad.
The train doors opened and Remus all but flung himself out onto the platform, accidentally ramming the frame of the pram into the man in front of him, who was taking his sweet time getting off the train for no reason. Legs. The man turned and glared, and Remus didn't give a single shit, finally managing to barge past, his eyes frantically scanning the platform.
Blonde hair, blue coat, dark hair, grey coat, baby crying.
Nothing. His pulse jumped. The train he'd managed to get on had only been 11 minutes behind Teddy's. They couldn't be far. It had probably just arrived at a different platform. And fuck, there were so many platforms.
Right, next platform then. Start at number 1 and work your way along.
He told himself. That was the plan, carefully crafted to stop himself falling apart completely. It wasn't working. What if the man hadn't got off here? What if he'd stayed on? What if Teddy was? Remus dragged in a breath that tasted like metal and forced himself to breathe. His chest was tightening in that horribly unpleasant way. Not quite an asthma attack, which would be a fucking nightmare, considering his inhaler, along with his phone and wallet, was in his coat pocket, which he'd left on the bloody train along with his son, but close enough that it made his thoughts fuzz around the edges. He closed his eyes for half a second, just long enough to steady himself, and then took off down the platform. The station was busy. It seemed like there were people everywhere, and Remus checked each face compulsively.
Teddy, dark hair, baby. Teddy, dark hair, baby.
Nothing. His shoeless foot ached as he ran up the stairs onto platform 5, a warning he didn't have the luxury of listening to, and he shoved the sensation aside, heart hammering.
You left him. You left him on the train. He was crying for you.
Back on the concourse, Remus stopped, completely overwhelmed. He should call the police, admit to what he'd done. Someone bumped into him, and suddenly the space opened up around him, wide and echoing and packed with people. The light was too bright. The noise was too loud. His vision narrowed.
Fuck, oh God.
He braced his hand against a pillar, head bowed slightly, trying to breathe through it, and then Remus's head snapped up.
Teddy.
That had definitely been Teddy's laugh, clear and bright and cutting through the din of the station like a bell. He followed the sound, heart thudding painfully, threading through the crowd, and then he saw them. They were sitting off to one side, near a coffee kiosk, tucked just out of the main flow of people. The man sat perched on the edge of a metal chair, one foot braced against the table leg. The baby slumped bonelessly against his chest, fast asleep. On the chair next to him sat Remus's rucksack, his coat, his shoe, and Teddy. Teddy was standing between the man's knees, clutching a paper cup with both hands, and clearly talking a mile a minute. The man listening, not politely, not distractedly, but genuinely listening. Remus could tell by the way he was nodding along, his head tipped to one side, mouth curved in an easy, indulgent smile, as Teddy gestured wildly, sloshing whatever was in the cup over them both. Remus's chest almost caved in on itself. He stood there for a moment, frozen, looking at the scene. The way Teddy looked so relaxed, the way he leaned into the man without hesitation, the absence of tears. He was safe. The world rushed back in all at once.
Teddy.
Remus shouted, his voice breaking, and Teddy's head whipped around.
Daddy.
He barreled forward, arms flung wide, and Remus dropped the pram and bags and sank to his knees just in time to catch him, arms closing tight around a small, solid body as it crashed into him.
I'm here.
Remus breathed into Teddy's hair, a sob breaking free from his throat.
I'm here, sweetheart. I've got you.
Teddy clung to him fiercely.
You took ages.
I know.
Remus kissed his head.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
The door shut.
I know.
Remus said again.
Oh, Teddy.
They made their way over to where Teddy had been waiting. The man was on his feet, smiling nervously as they approached.
Glad you managed to find us. I didn't know where was best to wait. He's been very brave.
He looked down at the baby.
And this one's finally gone off.
Remus looked over at him. Up close, the man looked as exhausted as Remus felt. His hair even more unruly than before, dark circles under his eyes. But his eyes themselves were bright and almost sparkling in the dim light.
Thank you.
Remus said earnestly, gripping the man's shoulder, careful not to wake the baby.
Thank you.
The man shrugged.
It was my fault. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. I bought him a cappuccino.
He said sheepishly.
A cappuccino.
He told me he has them all the time.
He said a little defensively.
Although I now think that perhaps that isn't actually the case.
Remus huffed a shaky laugh.
No, that's fine. Of course that's fine. My name's Remus, by the way.
I know.
Sirius replied.
Ted's told me. Serious.
Like the
dog star.
Huh, interesting.
They stood there for a moment, unsure what to say now that things seemed to have been resolved.
Well,
Sirius said, shifting his weight and checking on the baby.
I'll let you get on with your very delayed, I imagine, day. Thanks again for your help, and
He waved his hand uselessly.
I'm sorry about everything.
Remus hesitated. Something about the idea of just walking away felt a bit weird, but he didn't know why.
It's fine.
He said eventually, though he still didn't make the move.
All's well that ends well. Thanks for looking after Teddy so well.
The two of them exchanged another look, not quite awkward, not quite easy, maybe even a little shy, and then Sirius smiled again, small and genuine.
You're welcome. He's a lovely lad. He looks just like you.
He gave a nervous laugh.
Sorry, you must get that all the time.
I do,
Remus agreed.
but it never gets old hearing it.
He glanced down at the baby still fast asleep.
Looks like your one has your hair, at least.
Sirius looked confused for a moment.
Oh.
He stroked the baby's head.
No, he's not, actually.
He broke off with a click of his tongue.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, both have black hair, don't we, Harry?
Is that his name?
Sirius looked back up.
Yeah.
He said, although he sounded a little sad.
Harry James.
Remus just smiled.
Lovely.
It was nice to meet you.
Sirius said.
Don't forget your bag and coat. And your shoe.
Oh.
Remus went over, knocking the shoe onto the floor and sliding his foot back inside. He picked up his coat and bag.
Thanks. I better leave these with you.
He propped the pram up against the table, putting the bags on down on the floor.
Say goodbye then, Teds.
Bye.
Sirius smiled and gave Teddy a little salute.
Bye, Teddy. Don't forget to mind the gap between...
The train and the platform edge.
Both Teddy and Sirius dissolved into giggles, leaving Remus feeling slightly bemused.
Right. Bye then.
They turned to go, Teddy waving enthusiastically over his shoulder, still laughing.
What does that mean?
Remus asked him as they took a couple of steps back into the crowd.
Oh, it's just a joke that me and Sirius have now.
Teddy said airily.
We do it all the time because he's my best friend.
He's your.
Remus stopped walking. He had a sudden feeling that he was making a terrible mistake. He turned back round. Sirius was still standing there, watching them go, and he lifted his hand in a little wave. Remus looked at his watch. The Natural History Museum could wait. He turned on his heel, Teddy spinning with him.
Hey,
He called as he walked back towards Sirius.
I don't suppose you're free for some lunch, are you?
Sirius was in trouble. Not the catastrophic call your lawyer sort of trouble, though he'd had plenty of experience of that, but the subtler, more insidious kind, the Remus Lupin kind. Remus Lupin was hot. He was also funny, smart, kind, clearly great with kids, and had this laugh that made Sirius want to take all his clothes off. Oh, did he mention he was also hot? Which really wasn't very ideal, considering Sirius was currently running on approximately 3 hours of sleep, half a croissant, and adrenaline. They'd ended up in a bakery/cafe about a 20-minute walk from the station. It was cozy, warm lights, reclaimed wood, and plants trailing from the ceiling. Sirius had hovered awkwardly with the pram just outside, but Remus had held the door open with his foot and ushered him in.
We come here all the time. It's a bakery,
Teddy told Sirius, like he might not have known.
but we call it bakery.
Sirius glanced at Remus.
What?
A bakery,
Teddy repeated louder, clambering onto the chair Sirius had pulled out for him.
because Daddy always takes me to bakeries.
Sirius still didn't understand, and when he looked at Remus, hoping for an explanation, he found the man quickly going pink, a rather lovely flush creeping up the side of his neck and staining over his cheeks.
Don't worry about it.
He gave his head a little shake, a sweet smile tipping the corner of his mouth.
It's because Daddy's gay.
Teddy interrupted without a care in the world.
That means he likes people who are men and not ladies.
Remus was just about scarlet by now.
Teddy,
He muttered, eyes flicking to Sirius and then back to his son.
that's not something you just tell people.
I don't care.
Sirius said as casually as he could, unbuckling Harry and taking his own seat.
Same, actually.
He smirked.
And you've reminded me that when I get home, I need to give the garage a ring to check how they're getting on with my bike.
Remus looked at him for a second longer and then burst out laughing. Sirius only just managed to stop himself from taking his trousers off in public. In trouble. They ordered some lunch, Teddy insisting on getting a cinnamon bun that was almost as big as his head. And when Harry started fussing while they were waiting, Remus leant over and grabbed the changing bag, getting out a bottle and formula, catching a passing waiter's eye, and asking for a mug of hot water. He made up the bottle without even blinking, and then held his hands out for Harry, who went to him. No problem, and Sirius sat and enjoyed his first hot cup of coffee he'd had in months, while Remus fed Harry with a little bit of help from Teddy, all the while chatting away as if they did this every day. They talked so easily that Sirius found himself fully relaxing into it, leaning back in his chair and letting the conversation wander. He told Remus a bit about how he came to have Harry, getting a little choked up, and rather than lay on the syrupy sympathy that Sirius couldn't bear but had come to expect, Remus just listened in this attentive way that made him feel like what he was saying really mattered, like he really mattered. Sirius wasn't used to it. Remus told him a bit about his and Teddy's background too, about where they lived and Teddy's school. Sirius asked about Remus's work, and Remus's whole face lit up, and he launched into several complicated anecdotes that Sirius could only pretend to follow. At some point during the meal, Teddy clambered onto Sirius's lap, feeding him a last bite of cinnamon bun.
I'm so sorry.
Remus said, mouth full of sandwich, as Teddy launched into yet another complicated series of questions that Sirius was to answer.
He never stops talking.
Sirius grinned.
Like his dad.
Oh,
Remus swallowed, and Sirius could tell he was biting the inside of his cheek.
oh God, I'm so sorry.
Sirius reached across the table and put his hand on top of Remus's.
I like it.
He told him honestly. Remus beamed at him. Eventually, the food was eaten and plates cleared away. They bickered for a moment over who was going to pay until Sirius pushed up off his chair and marched right over to the cash register, ignoring Remus's exasperated cry. He glanced a look as he tapped his card on the machine, only to find Remus shaking his head with what Sirius thought might be a fond look on his face.
You really didn't have to do that.
Remus said as he got back to the table. Sirius shrugged.
I know, I wanted to.
Maybe
Remus was going pink again.
maybe I could get it next time.
Back in Sirius's arms, Harry stirred, making a small disgruntled noise. Sirius's focus immediately shifted, and he adjusted his hold, rocking him gently. When he looked up, Remus was watching, his expression unreadable with something that made Sirius's chest tighten all the same.
You're so good with him.
Remus said quietly.
Honestly, Sirius, you're doing such a good job.
Sirius shrugged again, suddenly self-conscious.
I love him.
He said simply. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, normal even, and that, Sirius realized, was the problem. He'd told himself that this wasn't a good idea. Not with Harry, not with everything that had happened. He needed to thank Remus for a lovely afternoon and leave. Keep things simple. He couldn't want more. Not at the moment. But instead, he heard himself say,
I'd like that, by the way. You getting it next time.
Remus didn't hesitate.
Good.
He said simply.
I would too.
1 year later, they took the stairs in sync. Harry squealed in delight as Remus had a quick nibble on his socked toes, gripping the buggy's safety bar with chubby hands. Sirius had the front end, Remus the back, and together they lifted it smoothly.
Ready?
Sirius asked.
Yep.
Remus replied, already moving downwards towards the bottom of the steps.
Sock.
Harry declared as they arrived onto the platform, sticking his leg up into the air and tugging at his foot.
Sock.
Yes, Hazzy.
Sirius laughed.
That is a sock. A sock that we would very much like you to keep on.
He gently pushed Harry's leg down and looked down at his side.
You want to put your bag at the bottom, Teddy Bear?
Teddy considered this, glancing at the buggy, and then adjusted the bag on his back.
No, thank you.
He said, grabbing Sirius's free hand and swinging it like he always did. Sirius smiled at him and squeezed back without thinking. The platform was busy, but not overwhelming, and Remus gave a quick look at the automated timetable that showed that they still had 11 minutes until their train arrived.
Well, look at that.
Sirius said, following Remus's gaze.
We're early.
Don't jinx it.
Remus grinned. They boarded without incident. Remus lifted Harry out, balancing him on his hip while Sirius collapsed the buggy, stacking it neatly in the designated space. Harry immediately reached for Teddy's hair, fingers gripping his curls enthusiastically.
Ow.
Teddy said, flapping his hands.
Papa, make Harry stop.
Oi.
Sirius detangled Harry's fingers.
Hands to yourself, mate.
Remus hoisted Harry up further, away from temptation, and was rewarded as Harry patted his cheek with a sticky hand. Sirius snorted, licking his thumb and wiping away the smudge of something that had been left behind. Remus pressed a kiss to the side of his head in thanks, and his free hand slid onto Sirius's lower back as they moved towards their seats. They settled in, Teddy by the window opposite, obviously, and Harry wriggling between them. The doors of the train slid closed, and the train hummed to life, pulling away from the platform. Sirius draped an arm along the back of Remus's seat, fingers absently playing with the collar of his jumper. Remus reached up, squeezed Sirius's wrist once, and leaned into him.
You okay?
Sirius asked quietly.
Yeah.
Remus said.
Just happy.
Remus said that a lot these days. Sirius bumped his knee gently with his own.
Good. Let him stand up for a bit.
Remus scooped Harry up and lowered him to the floor, holding both his hands for a moment, and then letting go. Harry babbled nonsensically, wobbling on his feet as the train picked up speed. Sirius's arm snapped forward, steadying him, and Harry let out a triumphant
Da.
before promptly face-planting into Remus's knees.
Still counts.
Remus said, laughing as he caught him, turning him around and watching as he attempted to climb up onto the free seat next to Teddy, unsuccessful until Teddy noticed and hauled him up onto his lap.
Careful, Ted, you got him.
Teddy nodded, wrapping his arm tightly round Harry's middle, and pointed at something at the window, chatting away to him.
Hey.
Sirius said, brushing his thumb along Remus's jaw before he could stop himself. Remus caught the thumb and kissed it gently.
What? Nothing, just hey.
Sirius rested his head briefly against Remus's shoulder, just for a second, and Remus tilted into him as they both sat there, watching Harry shriek with laughter as Teddy tickled his tummy. And Sirius thought, like he had done every day for the past year, that this was a remarkably good way for a day to start. Benite. Thanks for listening to this text-to-speech podfic composed by Burning Aurora, Kaliana, and Flowerhawk.